Hey everyone, welcome to our brand new segment called Lunch and Learn. We are getting ready to stream here across the board on all of our socials, and I have a special group of people. I've got the chance to meet Michael and Jasmine at the Mastermind as well. They are one of our leaders in the world of certified admins as well. We've had segments that we tested out in the Saspreneur group. They were part of it, and they built a company called RevForce, and it's got quite the story. So I told our director of certifications, Alicia, hey, do an introduction. We want to do a special class with them. And Michael and Jasmine are going to go through and teach us the difference between tactical versus technical. So I'm excited for this. If you're watching this, tell us what city you're from. Tell us, if you are ever interested in getting certified, or maybe you're just watching around the fence and you're not even part of the high level family yet and you're just in here for a great treat, just learning content, learning new ways of automate things. But without any further ado, Michael, Jasmine, welcome to the Lunch and Learn. I'm excited for y'all to teach us some pretty cool things.
Thank you. Thank you, Paulson. Yeah, we are super excited. Mike and I were fired up that, it's just only been a little over a week that we got to come down and meet the broader family at high level at the Saspreneur event, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I recommend anybody who's just getting started, if nothing more than just the belief of seeing other people who were there that were, in this for only 2 weeks, other people who've been in for a few years trying to figure out like, how do I actually grow a business with the high level ecosystem? So we're really excited. And Mike and I want to take the time today to kind of basically help people with the process that we found ourselves struggling in the very beginning with. And we hope this will be helpful. It took us almost a culmination of at least 10 years to learn some of these principles. Because when you first sometimes get started in business, you coming from the background of being like a technician, you've done a job before, so you know how to do that job. But oftentimes we don't understand the business of doing that job. We don't know how to go out and market that skill. We don't know how to maybe onboard or manage our skill. We only know how to maybe do our skill. And so we're hoping that we can kind of walk you through a process that either if you are yourself, just a startup looking to figure out, hey, I just started an agency at high level and now I don't know what to offer. I don't know how to get it fulfilled. I just know I'm excited and I see an opportunity here, to the people who are maybe servicing and providing business owners with some services, and you're trying to figure out, how do I communicate with this business owner who knows what they want but doesn't know how to explain to me what they want? So we kind of hope that this whole process will help you guys clear some air on that.
Yeah, and it's really gonna,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. If you're watching this, give us a one in the chat live. Tell us what city you're checking in from. We're going to hear from Michael here shortly. And what we want to do is make sure you all understand with this lunch and learn, we're going to keep the conversation very organized. The topic is tactical versus technical. We're going to talk about three things. First thing is the scope of work documentation. And if you came to our mastermind or taken any courses, Chase and I, and even others, like JB, we talk about the visionary versus the integrator. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that kind of a role play with Michael and Jasmine and how they kind of function together. The second thing we're going to talk about is building the wireframe and really uh, displaying the work that we are basically proposing with the customers. And the third thing is obviously deploying the fulfillment. But without any further ado, Michael, tell us how you know Jasmine. I didn't even connect the dots together actually in the beginning. I'm like, wait, it's the same last name. There's got to be some connection here. Tell us, what y'all story is, Michael.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I met Jasmine through mutual friends when I went to college at Northern Michigan University here in Marquette, and that's where we currently reside. That's where our agency is, and the primary teammates are also located. And what was interesting is, I came up here from school. I'm actually born and raised in the city of Chicago, came up to Northern Michigan University of all places, and loved it so much, found a beautiful gal that I eventually married, and this August it's 11 years of marriage for us. Been together for
Wow.
14. So, it's amazing. I say all that because it's amazing when not only have you found a life partner, but also a partner in business. We get to do this together.
Mhm.
That's what's exciting. And we're the left brain, right brain. She's more on the graphic design and very creative. I'm more on, the technical. Let's get to it, but also in that whole process, left brain, right brain, what we've learned is effective communication. We're not mind readers. I don't expect Jasmine to read mine, vice versa. So we learned that the principle of clear and effective communication will work, especially with what we're going to share with you when it comes to best practices dealing with customers out in the field. So I'm really excited. Jasmine's got a ton of great information to share with you. So without further ado, I rather have give the floor to her.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more about their personal story and how their whole business got all started and what they do, if you go to our certified admin directory, you'll find their profiles, the bios there. You can follow them on literally all the socials. And you all know that I don't put anybody and everybody on the stage like this. So we vet people out, make sure that they know what they're talking about. They're, valid in their expertise and things like that. So Jasmine, we planned out the session and we ended at tactical versus technical. Give us where we start. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so ultimately, I based a lot of what we were doing as it took us some time to learn this, but there's a really great book that I recommend to everybody. And I actually talked about this during the SaaSpreneur event. It's called Michael Gerber's E-Myth. He's got one that's called E-Myth Revisited. And it's really a great book to help small businesses or any business to understand that there are different roles to a business. And oftentimes we are stronger in one role than the others. And we usually have to develop some of those other areas. And because of that, he says that most small businesses start as a technician. Like you start doing a job. You have some specific skill that you have learned how to do, and that's commanded you a way to make an income. And usually you get pretty good at that, and you start getting the idea in your head that, hey, I think I want to be a rebel. Like I want to be more independent. I want to jump out. I want to do this for myself. And you usually do that. And then you find out really quickly that there were other roles in the business that you were really not aware of. And it makes it very difficult for you then to sometimes communicate to those roles what you need to grow your business. So over the years, while we were developing our own agency, we've learned ways to talk to our customers in order to get the information we need to be able to get the outcomes they're looking for. And sometimes our business owners are not even aware that they should be doing these things or don't know. And that's probably why they're struggling a little bit. So I want to walk through what we call our 9D strategy. And it's going to take people through the technical aspect of what maybe someone who would be the architect of their business, the entrepreneur's role that E-Myth talks about. And then I want to kind of take people into phase 2, which is a little bit more about the management side. How do we what are we actually going to do? And how does that go to our outcomes? And then the last piece is how do we do it? How do we put it all together? How do we make it happen? And so Mike will actually take over phase 2 and phase 3, but I'll kick off with phase 1 of helping people understand the role of the entrepreneur and how do we get that information to move forward.
Yeah,
So I can
and
go ahead
and and as you're watching this, we're gonna share some screens here. We've got a Canva template or Canva presentation. I mean, we're gonna make the presentation available to you later in Google Drive and things like that. And those of you that are watching, if you look at the description, there's also a trial offer. So if you ever are watching and you're around the fence and haven't made that jump into HighLevel, you can definitely do that. You can also connect with Michael and Jasmine even at a personal level. Feel free to call them and jump on a calendar with them and figure out what HighLevel is all about. They have resources as well, but either way, just so you're made aware, we'll make all these resources that we're sharing available to you as you're watching this. But go ahead if you want to share your screen. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and just click share here and boom. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, absolutely. I love this book, E-Myth, by the way, with Michael Gerber. If you are ever wanting to learn how to go from 5 different offers to one offer and go from this custom project agency to like a logo-oriented offer business that's just assembly line built, it's a great story about agencies converting into efficient houses. But what is phase 1, 2, and 3? Give us a quick rundown here.
Yeah, so phase 1 is really focused on, what the role of what the entrepreneur would be, and that is to really define what it is that they want to have created. So they have a pain point of some sort, something is not built that they need in their business, and we need to get to the point of very clearly describing what that is and also trying to put some outcomes around that. In phase two, we take what we've discovered in phase one and we then format out an actual process that we could do, whether that means we're automating something, maybe we're having to build a website, maybe we're building some emails. We got to figure out what the assets are that need to get built in that system. And then in phase three, it's actually putting that whole system together, making sure that the employee or the customer understands what we built, understands how to run what we built, and we actually give them some tools to continue maintaining that moving forward, unless they want to, retain our services for management, because that is always an option. Some small agencies do want to continue managing the systems they built. So it kind of offers you the flexibility of either to build and release or build and maintain. That's kind of up to you what you want to do with your agency, but we will walk through each of those phases. So let me jump down into phase one and we'll kind of dig in. And I'm actually going to be, with the permission of one of our students, I'm going to be actually utilizing their use case to kind of walk you through this, because
Cool.
I found personally for me, people can tell me a lot of things, but I need to see how that's like applicable. How do I apply that into a scenario? So we're going to kind of do a little bit of both. So let me scroll down here into phase one, which is our first piece here, which is our discovery phase. And let me see if I can
I
zoom.
love that. I love that, by the way. If you're watching this live, type in phase one in the comments, and we're gonna go through a real life scenario. So appreciate the students and the folks that are in your ecosystem that said yes. And just so we have some notes here before we get to phase one. What does the sales cycle look like? Is Michael the one closing the deals? Are you closing the deals? Like, how do we get to this point of like, okay, let's get on a call with the client so we can map out the scope of work.
I
Exactly.
guess,
So
yeah.
go ahead. Well,
I was
before
gonna say the touch point, whoever like, actually was the initial point of contact, right? So if I made the contact, and I built that relationship, or that person related more with me, then I would be kind of being the quote project lead a little bit until we get to this point. Or if that contact really resonated with Jasmine, then she'll be, the point of contact leading up to phase one. But either way, both of us eventually converge to get to phase one together, so that we're both present and being able to answer the questions, and also seeing, what the dynamic is between the potential relationship that's about to happen, right?
And I
Love it.
can say too, before we get to phase one, this, I based a lot of this off of the fact that, we're high level certified admins, and on a weekly basis, we are getting leads inbound to us as well. So Alicia typically drops us between 10 and 15 leads every single week. And these are all people reaching out already with a problem. So in that case, we still need to do a discovery phase. Like they may be writing like, hey, I want a website. But there's a very large range of website, like everything from a standard landing page to maybe a full e-com store and everything in between. So in order for me to truly understand, we still have to get to the discovery phase. So this can happen for inbound leads, or like Mike said, if we're getting someone on a call, this is always the first step. We got to find out what is going on, especially because when I get into the second part of phase one in the diagnostic side, sometimes we find our small businesses have misdiagnosed themselves. I can't tell you how many times over the years that we had a digital agency that someone came to me, it's like, I want a website or I want marketing. And after having a conversation with them, that is not at all what they needed or wanted. They just simply, they didn't know how to communicate what they wanted in any other terms. They've got a very broad stroke brush that they paint everything with. Like digital marketing is a lot of different segments. They just know that they need to do something online. So there is some digging that has to happen. And that's the first step, is discover, right?
This is exactly why a lot of business owners hire their nephews to handle social media and marketing, and nieces, and they're like, we're expecting leads. And I'm like, your teenage, family member is not gonna build your business overnight.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And again, that goes back into that they may understand the technical piece of it. Like they can build your social media, but they don't understand why they're building it. They have no idea that you're trying to get leads. They're just like, hey, I set up your accounts. It's good. Like they're ready to roll, right? So
Love
in
it.
the first phase of discover, we really want to have like a couple of things here. We want to understand what the client's goals and challenges are. So I'm going to be asking a lot of probing questions of like, hey, why did you, come in? What do you think the problems actually are? I'm going to spend a lot of time acting more like a business therapist. I honestly recommend, even if you're a salesperson, treating the first call more like you are there as like a therapist rather than there to give them some kind of prescription right out the gate. it's going to go a long way in building trust because they're going to feel heard. So I take a lot of effective notes. Honestly, even if I am like a therapist drawing a bunny rabbit on my notepad, because quite frankly, I might already know what the problem is. I still need my customer to think and believe that I am actually paying attention to it. And sometimes I do catch things where all of a sudden they tell me something that I would have missed if I hadn't been listening to what they were telling me. So it's super important to really effectively listen to what your customer is saying. This builds, like I said, trust and rapport. People are so starved for attention today. They're so starved for someone to actually pay attention to what they have going on, that this will build a huge piece into bringing you from a provider into a partner. And I know that there's a lot of statistics out there, and I know that, Paulson that has even told us during the SaaSpreneur event, services have a high turnover rate. People oftentimes cancel services, especially because they don't understand the value. We found that when you build yourself as a partner and not a provider, you all of a sudden bring a new connection to the piece. And now they're not literally looking just at what you provide from a full service, but also what you mentally provide to them in feeling heard and having a partner to help them. And number 4, asking insightful questions. You want to ask all types of questions because sometimes you don't realize other things are related to the issue that they currently have. So there's other parts of their environment that might be causing this issue, not just the thing they're sharing with you. So you're kind of probing for all of that. So if I look at the example that we had a customer who's now actually turned student.
Certified admin now.
A certified admin now. Who has a nutrition and wellness company. And the wife of the couple, because they're also a couple, started baking sourdough bread, started posting it on Facebook that she made sourdough bread. And all of a sudden, she found out there was a huge market for people who wanted to purchase her sourdough bread. And so she started by just kind of posting out weekly posts on her Facebook. Hey, I'm making bread. Whoever wants me to make you a loaf, DM in my comments and I can take, your order. And it really quickly got out of hand because she found out there was a lot more people that wanted sourdough bread than she realized. She's only got so much room in her oven to bake. And so she was getting multiple requests per week for people wanting to order bread. Tracking the orders were becoming difficult because she's getting multiple conversation threads coming in from different, social medias because she cross-shared things and things like that. And then also coordinating pickup and payment was also becoming a hassle because she was having people come to her home at a certain time on a certain day to try to pick up the bread. That led to a lot of coordination. So this is what we discovered during this phase of, hey, here's what the problem is. The main pain point is I really want to see if I can grow this side of my business doing sourdough bread. However, I am doing this as a side hustle right now, and I can't afford to have so much time being eaten up in back and forth with conversations, also baking things that people might not come by and pick up, all kinds of areas that we are having issues. So now that we've understood the discovery of like what's going on, then we move into the second part of phase 1, which is diagnosing the problem and making sure that what we've heard from their discovery is actually moving into, okay, this is exactly what they want. I find that this piece, I actually use this like little chart. I use this a lot during my diagnostic part because I want to quantify the outcomes for my customers. So we found that in order to really create value, you have to understand that intrinsic value doesn't relate to your customer. They don't really understand what you're building at times. So this helped me kind of figure out for her how many hours a day she's doing specific tasks, and then how often she's doing that. So we could kind of figure out how much time we could dedicate to automating this process before she's wasting time automating versus just doing it manually. So this is kind of a cool little chart. I found this on a Reddit one time, and actually it was recommended to me from a guy who was actually a rocket scientist. So I thought, hey, he's pretty smart. Maybe I should use this. And so we validated the findings. We quantified her outcomes, and then we prioritized her issues. And this is why I'll swing over here to what we learned. So we learned that Kayla was spending on average about an hour a week responding to inquiries and orders. She was spending an additional hour each week just trying to keep track of the orders and following up on messages. And she also was dedicating 5-hour window every single week for people just to come in sporadically and pick up their bread between that 5-hour window. And then lastly, she was having to deal with cash. So she was having to keep cash on hand at all times for people when they did come pick up, they could pay in cash. So these were the areas that she wanted to fix. And we were able to realize that if we could fix it, we'd be saving her roughly about 6 to 7 hours every single week on this process. And for her, that was valuable, especially because she's got so limited time while she's still working. So the last step of the phase one is then to document their full process and really truly understand what they're currently doing so that we can actually adapt it for a more maybe online or more automated or streamlined process. So thorough documentation. I can't stress this enough, but most of the small businesses that I've worked with do not have a standard operating procedure for just about anything they do. Everything is like all up in their head. They're like, I know how to do it. But they can't translate that to an employee or even a service provider because everything's in their head. So I usually have to get them to take out a piece of paper like you see here on the right-hand side and literally draw out every step of the process. So what do you do first? And then what? And then what? And a lot of times when we're doing the then what, they'll also go, oh yeah, I forgot. I also do this. So you really can dig through all of the pieces that they do so we can get a clear understanding of what their current process is so that when we go to map the new process, we're making sure that we're kind of reducing what they're doing, really simplifying it. And we're not missing any critical components that they are actually doing that's leading to their success. So in this case, we looked at her ordering process and we realized that she was spending a lot of times doing a lot of manual processes that could easily be automated with the help of the HighLevel software. So there are so many tools in the HighLevel toolbox that it's so important for us to have this map first, because even if I can't do this right with the customer, which sometimes I can because I know the system very well now, but if you're brand new and you're just getting started, I oftentimes, once I have their document, I might tell them, hey, I need to go back home. I need a couple of days for me to do a proof of concept. I need to do some research to figure out exactly what would be the most efficient way for us to do this for you. And then I'll come back and we can have a meeting to talk about the process I came up with and see if that makes sense for you. My customers are always happy to know that I'm willing to spend more time on them. If you're new, this is a great way for you to say, cool, I now can go use and leverage my community to ask them, hey, does anybody know of a way that I could do this? Or I'm not really as sure how all of these different features work. Someone else maybe can help you in the community to map that piece out. You can go back looking like a rock star to your customer. And at the same time, you can feel confident in the results you're going to get them. So don't feel like you have to do the process of mapping it out right then and there, right? Secondly, we were able to document step by step which features, would help solve the problem. And we realized that inbound messaging, taking orders and payment, and tracking the orders were the three things that we really needed to handle in order for her to feel like she had success. So now we're not trying to do a million things. We're down to just doing three things. This also helps us with scoping out our work so we can quote them on a price, because now we know exactly what they need and we can start to figure out how much time it's going to take us. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Mike now. He's going to step in and take us through, okay, how does this get mapped? And then he'll also take us through how, once we know what's been mapped, when we delegate to our customers or us who's doing what, we can then realize how much work we really have to do versus how much, they're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to step back real quick and I'm going to let Mike take over and I will move.
As Mike, you're getting ready to share the phase two here
Here.
and three. What stood out to me in what Jasmine described, most importantly, is before you start with marketing solutions, you need to understand how the business fulfills all these orders and products. So you really got into diagnosing really the operations of the business, the assembly line of the business. And like you said, Jasmine, it's better to be the therapist before you become the physician to give them the prescription, right? Like, so that's the initial staging that you have to kind of pay attention to. And the second thing that stood out to me, from what you shared, Jasmine, is you quantify the problem. Because early on in my agency days, the first type of mistake I would do is I have this big strategy, I know it's going to work, but they didn't attach a certain dollar value or a time frame to my strategy solution, and that often led to sales that are not connected, right? You could get the sale, but then after the, sale, during the onboarding, they're going to be like, wait, what did I buy again? Help me understand this package all over again. You're like, wait, we talked about this whole thing. And quantifying, I think that helps quite a bit, and that's what stood out to me. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And it becomes almost like a reselling job. I have to resell them every time I see them. And it's like, wait. No, like again, clear communication. Here's what you're getting, here's what I'm providing, right? That's I know we're oversimplifying things, and human beings, we're not as simple as we like to come off as being sometimes, but it's so important. So phase two is the design where you're able to actually start mapping out what it's going to look like when before we actually get to the building stuff, building things out within the platform. But I want to share quickly to help you kind of not speed through, but make this a more simple process. Having some assets already available, like we have all these different graphics that we use as part of our design thinking process. So we have traffic sources. Okay, where are they getting their traffic from? Emails, pages, and we use those as stationary blocks as part of the design process. So this is a little tedious to do on the front end, but I'm telling you, once you have it established and you have a rock solid naming convention to know where to get these assets, it will make you way more efficient when it comes to your design process.
And I'm going to jump in. We are going to provide that whole system that we built out, all of the assets for anyone in the Canva document, so they can have their own little mapper to map out most of the functionality that you would need. Obviously, sometimes you have to build some of your own, but it does help speed up the process.
Yeah. Quick question on the asset. So what you're saying there, Michael, is that when you're in a discovery phase with the prospect, you're going to have pre-built funnels and pre-built ads and pre-built automations so they can visualize your talking points. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Especially
got it.
if it's a use case that's similar to one that you already done and had success with. Why
Right.
not? It's like, well, and obviously within proper disclosure, not giving too much information away about the previous engagements because you have
Sure.
to exercise caution here.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, we've done this in the past, and here's how we've laid it out. Does this make sense for you? Oh, okay. Yes, I got you. And it's
Yeah.
the whole thing of, it's the elementary school show and tell, right? Like I gotta show
Yeah.
them, and I also gotta tell them how this works. So with Kayla and Josh's company, Rational Wellness, what we found out is a lot of their traffic source was actually on Facebook. So it was a Facebook profile. And we realized that we have to take from Facebook and do a promotional post of what they're going to be putting together when it comes to their new product line of sourdough breads. Then we would have an order form page so people can input their information. And you'll see how it segments out. It continues going linearly, but also drops down. So I'll go linearly first, and then I'll drop down so you guys can see this. I'll scroll in just a wee bit more. So they place the individual or the customer places an order form with all their information. That goes also to a booking page where now they schedule their pickup date. So it's very clearly communicated that Kayla and Josh know when this person's coming. This person know when their order is going to be ready to be picked up. And then there's a redirect page going back to their home website to see all their other services and all the other products that they offer. Again, it's cyclical because we really want to continue having these people specifically in this person's ecosystem. So going back with the order form, you can see it segments out. It goes to a form submitted. So Kayla and Josh get this information. Again, this is an automation that we'll get to building out later, which I get super geeked out. And all my, high level workflow admins that do workflow automations, they get super excited. So we just want to get to building stuff, right? And I know, we got to pump the brakes for a little bit, but we'll get there in a moment. So once the form is submitting, there's an order confirmation, a 24-hour reminder for that individual, and then an hour reminder right before. So it ensures that this person's like, they're going to come in and pick up their products, right? And also it's so much easier than Kayla, what was originally going on back and forth through Facebook Messenger DM. Oh my gosh, what a hassle. Then he said this, nobody canceled. Oh my gosh, my dog got sick. I got to take it to the vet. Can I go? Instead of 3 o'clock, can I do 4 o'clock? Whoa, dealing with all that was so painstakingly complicated. And so what we did is obviously we created the online ordering system, but first it was a communication consolidation. All the information was going to one specific place. And those of you that are familiar with the HighLevel platform know this is so powerful because whether it's email, SMS, direct messaging on any of your favorite social media accounts or platforms. It all goes to one spot. That is crazy. And then when you send the outbound message, it gets to them right where they were wanting to be communicating with you. Incredible, absolutely incredible. So we did that. Obviously, we made an automated confirmation and a reminder follow-up sequence. And at the end, we also enabled a payment at the time of purchase. Earlier in our conversation, we mentioned how Kayla always had to have cash on hand when they're doing those cash transactions. Now, don't worry about it. What's going to happen is we'll make sure that they have their payment gateway in place. You can take orders online right then and there. And also that helps when it comes to tracking metrics of your financials at the end of the month. So you see if you're running different promotional things or you've introduced a new product, this was a bestseller, you can really track all those sales, which makes it a fantastic process.
I do want to jump in real quick.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
one thing that Mike just said here too is it's at this stage that we're actually walking the customer back through this. So we took their process and we set this process side by side. So we can handle all of these things and any objections they might have or any tweaks they might have. This is what really cements the value for the customer, because it also shows them sometimes you might have some more complex systems. We really loved what James said at the SaaSpreneur event. He showed a picture of a car that he had a little fender bender with. And, you know, it was just like the headlight and the bumper was a little bit bruised up. And he's like, oh, it's just a headlight and the bumper. And then he got the, you know, invoice back from the collision center and there was 117 parts that needed to be ordered. That customer would not have understood. Like now, all of a sudden, you realize this job is way out of my hands. I'd rather pay someone to do this. Sometimes this is how you validate to your customer your value, why they want to keep working with you. So by walking through this whole process, they realize how complicated it is, how much you're doing to simplify. You know, Mike often says, this is a quote he always said, if it's convenient for you, it's probably inconvenient for someone else. Meaning we had to make this simplified.
Or
And so
if it's convenient for them, it's going to be inconvenient for us because we do the heavy lifting to make sure to make it simple.
and we don't build anything that we don't get signed off on this first. This is a big mistake that I made in the early days when I was building websites. I used to build everything right in the builder without designing it. I didn't understand why someone would use something like XD or, you know, Figma to design. We just, I'll just design it right in the builder because I'm so much faster. Until I realized someone wants to make changes, and now I'm ripping out all the work I did that took so many hours to configure, to do all the settings. So it's so important that you get this signed off by the customer. It also helps you go back when there's bracket or when there's scope creeping. When all of a sudden the project gets bigger than what they said, we can go back to the original picture and go, where was that in the, oh, you forgot. Okay, well, that's outside of the scope. We'd be happy to include it, but it's going to cost a little additional. So this is to protect both you and the customer to make sure that you're building what they want and not doing a whole bunch of extra work.
Clear communication.
What I
Go
what
ahead.
I love so far is so you have a discovery call probably over the phone or in person, you're shaking hands, or you have an inbound lead that came in, you're following up. Then you get on a Zoom session where you're kind of doing a strategy session, kind of like a bigger play where you're going back and forth and setting the boundaries of the scope. That's what's happening here. And go ahead, Michael.
No, I say absolutely right. You know, it is about boundaries because sometimes it's like this is a relationship. This is a business and professional relationship, but it is a relationship nonetheless. And you have to, the client needs to be okay with how you work and and vice versa, right? So it's
Absolutely.
very important.
And I will say this too, for anybody who's going, well, you know, I don't want to take this kind of, I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting paid to have these calls. I promise you, I promise you, I always say, if you think it costs a lot to hire a professional, try hiring an amateur. You'll find out how quickly your time is wasted. We found early on that it actually cost us way less to do the hour or half hour call with this client and make sure that we knew what they wanted than on
Yeah.
the back end, all the support issues and all of the anger and the frustration on the back end when they didn't get what they wanted. I lost the time
Yeah.
anyways. I'd rather lose the time up front and be clear than on the
Yeah.
back end.
Yeah, and this reminds me back, well, when I say back in the day, it's like 2014, 15, 16. The idea of a strategy session was fancy. It's like, ooh, I get on a Zoom and I can like showcase my skills, and it was like a big thing. And one of my good friends, Nick Robbins, shout out to Nick Robbins. He has, he had multiple seven-figure agencies, had a big group and everything. And he was one of the first ones to implement prepaid strategy sessions. So like What we would do in our dental agency is call, then a Zoom, and we're not getting paid. He would do a call for free, basically. But if you wanted us to go further and set up a strategy session, he would charge them like $200-300 for a prepaid session. That means you pay for the session, and if you don't use any services, you can take the strategy and implement it yourself or take it anywhere or whatnot. But if you decide to move forward, he would discount that 300 and give you credit in-house for the actual fulfillment. So it was a great way to bring prospects in and kind of like filter them out and make sure they were serious. Because back in the day, people would just jump in on strategy session with like 10 agencies and figure out a bigger plan and then go hire someone overseas to kind of fulfill everything. That used to be a thing. A lot of business owners that was kind of just short-sighted would do. And yeah, keep going. I just wanted to share those thoughts because
No,
this is evolved.
it's rock solid because it's no different than like when they say, well, this product is it's free shipping. And you're like, what? Well, actually, it's actually built into the price you already paid. If you're like, oh, but they get you with the free shipping. But no, this is valid because again, as a service provider, you're creating value during that time. And you don't feel like you want to get ripped off, vice versa. You want the client to get ripped off. So it's again, you have to see things from your perspective, but also very, very important to see things from their perspective. Put yourself in their shoes, right? So as we roll through phase two, delegation. This is again, we have to be clearly defining what is going to be our responsibilities as a service provider, or the person doing this work, and also what is the client going to be responsible for. So for us in this particular situation, the project management, building the funnels, setting up the pipeline, the integrations for the calendar, the email templates, and the workflows that we have to build and configure, all those assets that will be on us. That falls on our shoulders. But when we were speaking with the client, they will add their products. They would also do their product description and provide the images because they've already had a lot of this information and they knew how to work within the HighLevel software and how to do this. They were actually very tech savvy. And we provided a little bit of handholding at the beginning, but then they'd be like, "Oh man, Mike, this is kind of a piece of cake." I'm like, "Yeah, right." So and obviously Josh, who became a technical certified admin within our agency, and then he did all of this, and he's got an amazing story. And one day I hope to feature them and connect you guys with them because he's an individual that I have to brag on him. I'm sorry, I have to brag on him because he did not come from a technical background. He didn't at all. And as a matter, he was very tech adverse. Like, but once he got into it and started realizing, he built their website, he built their products and the development for their images and put them all together and structured and formatted. It looks so clean, so precise that he was able to take on those client responsibilities. So I say all that because this is a keen indication in this process of you got to know who you're dealing with when it comes to their technical capabilities. And if their life is already overwhelmed, if they're already stressed out, don't add more to it. Like, come on now. Like, you're here to help them. Like, yeah, I'm gonna step on your foot while I step on your head while you're drowning. Like, no, like you have to get in there, reach them up and get them out of the water, right? That's what they're there to help. So this is very important. So understand that you have to do the proper delegation and that way, again, clearly communicate of what's expected.
I'll jump in one last thing on this too is there are times when the client just has to have responsibilities. Again, we are partnering with them. I'm not in their business every day, so I don't know all about their products. I don't know all of these things. And if I'm going to take the time to learn about all those things, I have to account for that in my cost. And that's what I let my customers know. Like, hey, if you want to reduce the cost, then there are things that you should take on here because it will reduce the cost because you already know them and I won't have to take on the responsibility of doing all the market research, all the things that adds to it. So if I'm trying to help them with their budget, a lot of times this is where I'm taking off. Like, I'm like, which things would you like me to cross off of the package that you'll be responsible for? Because I want to meet them. I can work with anybody within any budget so long as we look at what the timeline will be, who's taking responsibility. And so this is a great way for you to craft those abilities to say, and also this might be the time when you also realize that, hey, I can't take on this project. This might be the moment when you decide that this client is not going to be a client for me. And then you can offer them to somebody else in the ecosystem, or you can simply just say, hey, here's your strategy plan. I hope that you consider us in the future when your budget gets a little bit bigger and you're able to actually work with us. I usually do that. If I have to cut them free, I already did the strategy with them. So I let them grow and then they might come back. So know
let
that.
them go so they can grow, right? If you're ever like an avid fisherman, right? There's, we live in Michigan, so it's a strict DNR regulation. So sometimes, catch a fish, like obviously it's not regulation size, let it go so it can grow. Same thing if you're out deer hunting, right? So you see that beautiful buck, be like, you know what? It's too small, let him go, and they'll come back. And oftentimes, believe it or not, on the return around is even far more better. It's just way superior than you've ever even dreamed of, right? So it's just having that abundance mindset, guys. If anything, I think maybe that's the little thing that we should little Scooby snack in there is having an abundance mindset.
Yeah. And then there's industries where they're so saturated, they're so used to marketing service providers. So even if they're grown, they'll try to take advantage of it and try to get a discount. Like I have a good friend of mine who runs a truck dealership and they charge $100,000 per truck. And he'll tell me, we'll laugh about like sales stuff and objections we get back in the day. And he'd be like, man, I get some of your people. He's literally talking about my people, and we
Yeah.
love discounts, right? And he was like, Paulson, some of your people ask for like 10, 15, $20,000 off of a truck. And I tell them, it's just too much truck today. That is just too much truck. And I never provide them discount. I'm like, thanks for sharing it with me, man. I appreciate your kind words.
And that's the best part of having people in your network from different industries and different verticals, right? Because you get that fresh perspective and you can joke and laugh about it because like whether you're in tech, whether you're in the high level community, this is what you do full time, or you do
Yeah.
other things. You're like, we're not so different, you and I, right? Like based on the conversations that we have with customers on a daily basis.
I
So
I love it. So develop on the second phase, right? What does develop mean?
Develop is really just building out these assets, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to create you can see based on the screen, the order form, the emails, and everything branded to this company. Again, we want that brand consistency because going back to understanding the customer and the customer's journey, we want to make sure that they know, oh, okay, we don't want any clunkiness or choppiness throughout this process. So we want to make sure everything it looks clean, looks well with what the customer or the client in this particular situation wants.
And in this case too, we live in a small rural area, which I feel like we're very behind times. When we start talking
Certain
about putting
aspects,
your
yes.
card online, like it's different like I said, she was having people roll up to her house to pick up their bread, which is not something that you probably would do, let's say in the city or other places, right? But making the brand consistent and making sure that the online presence looks good makes people feel less like it's a scam. And that's one thing that's really, really great about the HighLevel system is that because everything is so integrated and everything works seamlessly together, you are able to provide super high quality systems at a fraction of the price. You're not having to integrate a whole bunch of hodgepodge tools together to try to make this work. The customer can really feel that they are like, they might as well be ordering from a very big name brand as far as they're ordering from a very small mom and pop. And so that's really huge when you're first getting started and you're small, people have to trust you online. And this is a great way to do that, is making sure that the whole system works well together.
Absolutely. Well said. So now scroll up
Finishing up here on the last phase.
Home stretch. We're in the home stretch. Phase number 3, deploying, meaning now we got all the assets created. All right, so calendar set up, the emails are set up. Now we get into the workflow automation builder, the powerhouse of the HighLevel platform, in my opinion. This pulls everything together, and you're only limited here by your imagination of what you can really do. That being said, with this particular client in this situation, less is more, simpler is better. Because we can make amazing workflows, but you know what? At the end of the day, is it functional for the person that's going to be taking over from a technical perspective? And does the customer understand the process on how to get to where they got to go? So all those standalone assets we put into the into the workflow automation builder, and once we put them in there, we test them. We test. And we test from not only to make sure that the technical functionality is working well, but I also want to see what this looks like for the mock customer, the person that's going to go through this form, the emails, everything. I have to put myself in the customer's shoes to see that it makes sense. And also that allows me to then really, because here's the blind spot when it comes to workflow automations. because we did the discovery in phase one, because we did the design in phase two, we have depth of knowledge of this situation. We know a lot about how this should flow. Customer one that has not experienced this does not. So it's a little challenging. Like, okay, I'm coming at this the first time as a customer. How does this experience work for me? Is it enjoyable? Is it simple? And I had a great time because I want to come back and I want to buy more stuff from them because this was just fantastic,
Yeah.
right?
So
on
so
this,
just to zoom out for a quick
yeah,
second, here on the strategy session or the consultative call, you're telling them what your game plan is to build workflow automations and deploy. You're not going inside the workflows and building it out on the strategy session. You're just describing what the game plan is, what they can expect, and create the boundaries on a kind of a consultative mode.
Mhm.
yes, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. So they
got it.
have the strategy, and then once you have the strategy, it's like either build it yourself, you can, totally up to you, or we can build it for you, or I can find someone to build it, right? It's like, the people that, they do these home renovations. Like I'm going to install a new, kitchen sink, or excuse me, a new sink in my bathroom. Well, I can go to Home Depot, Menards, or whatever, get that stuff, and I can do it myself. Or you hire a contractor. It's like, listen, I got no time for this. Just, man, you handle it. I already bought the sink. It's right there. Next time you come in, just make sure you're done, and then just invoice me later. I'll make sure you get paid. Right?
Or how many of you guys have ever tackled a home
Yeah.
that you thought you had the skill for, only to find out really quickly you don't? I think that what's really cool about this is that they do get the whole strategy of exactly what to build. But when you're inside of the builder, anyone who's been inside of the high level builder understands that they have given us amazing customization. So every single one of the workflow actions or triggers has multiple settings that are attached to it that can create different things. And those of you that have been through the high level certification live mock exam or live exam have also found out how quickly you can mess up and fail the test because you simply accidentally changed a setting that shouldn't have been changed. You didn't really know what you were doing. And this is what I love about the high level cert program is that it's not just an e-course, guys. Like it is a live simulation at the end to ensure competence. We know that the people that have that badge, and believe me, Alicia and all the rest, I wouldn't say they take pride in failing us, but they do take pride in making sure that we do know what we're talking about, that we understand the process. And it's time. So we're under pressure. Like you're not muscling through this exam. You either know the information or you don't. And
Yeah.
so being able to feel confident to know that if you don't feel comfortable deploying this system, maybe you did want to build all the asset yourself. Maybe you got all those pieces together. You could always go to the certification directory and hand them this map and all of your assets and say, hey, could you please put this all together for me? I don't really want to waste my time and
Yeah.
energy trying to build my own bathroom.
But what's the expression? If you automate chaos, you get faster chaos. So definitely don't want
That's
that,
true.
right?
Well, big shout out to the certification program. If you're watching this, type in hashtag certified at the bottom of the comments. And we want to make sure more eyeballs are on the cert program. And Michael and Jasmine went through it. They're one of the top leaders that are certified already, and they have a lot of plans. I'm excited for kind of just see the growth for both of y'all. So, what happens next after the deploy phase? I think you go into demo, right? Where you're kind of
Yep,
showing them what they can expect.
exactly. And we actually do a live demo for the client so they can see how this works. Again, we had Josh and Kayla like, okay, pretend to be a customer and go through your own ordering process. How that make you feel? I like this. I like this. This part here. Oh, we should add. Can we add this over here? Or if it's something super minor, then yeah, okay, no problem, no big deal. It's not like adding massive amounts to our existing scope of work. But I really want to get their personal intake of what their customer would go through. So they said, "Wow, that was fantastic, great. Let's pop the hood so I can show you what's really working underneath." That way, Josh was able to see, oh, so this goes to here, which leads to this. I'm like, yeah, bud. It's, when it comes to automations, it's if-then scenarios. If this happens, then this happens. If that happens, then this happens. Like, Mike, is it that simple? Yes, it is simple. Not always easy, but it is simple. Again, clear communication of what they're getting and also how this all works together. Once they say stamp of approval, this is fantastic, man, when can we launch? We can schedule a future launch date to make sure we have everything else buttoned up. So we don't want to just prematurely just launch this. Or if everything's all set and we have a check, we have an itemized checklist, like this is all good to go. Well, if you guys are ready, we can deploy this early next week or even today, because today, depending on the day of the week, whatever the case may be about how they want to structure it, we can make it live. Great, let's rock and roll. So that's also fun too, because like at this particular point, they don't want to wait anymore. They're just like, man, this is like the energy is so high, it's electric, and they're like, man, let's get it going and let's get it done.
And by demoing, you're showing them, again, going back to the value, like we don't want them to ever cancel our services into perpetuity. So when we go through this entire process, they feel like they're now our partner in this entire journey. They have helped us make it. They have helped us build it. They feel confident with us by their side. They can do anything if we're by their side. And that becomes part of the, I want to hire you for the next engagement. I want to do the next thing. I want to tell other people about you. So the demo is really about training them and getting them excited about what they actually purchased, because now they don't get buyer's remorse. They don't feel like, because we found out that people will only adapt their systems to how much they can adopt it. So if they can't adopt what you just made for them into their actual daily routine, their business will not adapt and they will continue struggling. So a lot of people, they will eventually, and this is why we see this all the time, how many people buy software or buy systems, they toy around with it for a few days, they think they get it all set up, and they just cannot get it to be their daily routine, and pretty soon they just push it to the wayside. So it really is in your best interest to help them adopt their newfound system into their daily habits, into their daily process. And you can do that through the demo. You can teach them what their daily habits need to be to continue maintaining this, to get them excited about the iteration of building new pieces of it. And that makes it become ownership of them. They start to take ownership over that system. And then you can focus on maybe building the next system for them. And we found that this is why in our agency, we usually break down, we have like a retainer fee that we do with people that's like a milestone a month. We found that our small businesses can only handle about one system a month. It's kind of like when you decide you want to transition your life with a workout plan. You're like, I'm going to start drinking a gallon of water a day. I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat healthy 3 meals a day. You can't maintain all of those. So you should just start with one thing, get it under your control, adapt that into your lifestyle, and then move on to the next thing. It's the same thing for business. So the demo piece is a huge piece for us to make sure that they really adopt the new process into their system.
And they're comfortable with it, right? That's the biggest thing. They're comfortable with it, and which will lead right into actually the debrief.
The final piece here.
The final piece, which is, and Jazmin mentioned this, it's really the empowerment. Right? We give them a resource library of SOPs or standing operating procedures that have the documentation, some Loom videos that were recorded to showcase some of these things, because really it's bowling with the bumpers on. Like if you're going bowling, like with this SOP and some of these other systems in place, you're not going to get a gutter ball. The ball is going to go down the alley and you're going to hit pins. That's how we want it to be, because that's how we build in the buffer system and to almost like a fail safe, right? And once we did that, we realized, and here's what's crazy about like, man, you're giving all this away? What? You crazy? You're giving this all? Yes. Yes, let me explain. The more you give, believe it or not, you think the person's going to take it and run with it. The more you give, actually, the more they want to come back. Again, this is the abundance mentality, because they see like you're just really in it for them to win and to have them be successful. And then, like to Jazmin's point, once the debrief is done, with give them all the resources they need, and that's stored, and you explain where those resources are so they can easily get to them, some kind of multimedia or project management system. We use ClickUp as a project management tool, but also HighLevel has multimedia functionality, so you can put a bunch of great resources in there right into their sub account, which is fantastic. So it's quickly deployable. And then we discuss the next action steps. If they want to, if this was just a one and done engagement, like, hey, thank you so much, this is fantastic, we appreciate you guys, but right now we're just going to run this for the next maybe, I don't know, 60, 90 days, and maybe we can reconvene. Totally okay with us. That's up to your liking. Or like, no, let's put this in. But going back to that discovery call, now you got me thinking, there's a couple other things I want to get done. So once we put this in here, get some metrics, get some data from this, can we start with the next milestone or the next, right? But again, that is on that's for them to decide. We always use the phrase and the slogan, like, listen, we're ready when you're ready. Like we're ready when you're ready. So if the timing's not correct, you got some other things, other business or maybe personal engagements you got to handle because life happens to all of us. Yeah, we have to understand that too. Aside from these people being business owners, their moms, their dads, their aunts, their uncles, grandmas, grandpas, whatever, right? They have other obligations that sometimes don't match up. You have to respect that, right? So that way, the next step process is very simple and it should be nonchalant because you're already gaining so much trust and credibility with them all the way through the process.
And this
I
process can actually go pretty fast too, Paulson. Like we've taken people through this in less than a week and built assets for the, I mean, what we love, and we've taken this from you guys too. I mean, we're very much about the skateboard model.
Yep.
We actually call it our MVS, our minimal viable solution, because
Minimal viable system, right?
because people oftentimes they want to, when you're a small business, you don't really even know sometimes if this product or idea is going to really work. They need to go out and get product market fit. And before, people would go spend tons of money getting development dollars to have someone develop an entire application for some process like an ordering system. They spent $10,000 on an ordering system only to find out that, I don't even think I'm going to actually sell my bread online anymore. Like, that's a lot of money to spend, where this is something that, they can spend a couple $100 on, a couple $1,000, depending on how intricate they want the system or how little they want to do, and test that idea out and get some feedback. And so for any small business, I tell people all the time right now, you're silly if you're not on a HighLevel system, if you're a small business. You really are, because you can very quickly ideate using like the design thinking process of ideation, design it out, mock it up, and then really deploy it in a very short time frame to start getting feedback to decide whether or not it's worth it for you to actually build this into a bigger system. And we love it. Like ever since we started using HighLevel, it has completely revolutionized our business, because we do sell services, but just like everything, services are more high demand. Like they do require us to do a lot more work. But what we found is that we wanted to be in the SaaS business. We wanted to sell SaaS, but we knew that if our customers would not adapt to the SaaS system, we wouldn't continue keeping our customers. So we moved into having a little bit of a service arm to get people up and ramped up. And we found that once about 3 to 4 months of them using, like us going through a few milestones, they know enough of the system that they kind of like, hey, get your hands off the wheel. I want to do it. They want to drive.
I want to drive.
Okay.
Cool. I'm going to wave the checker flag for you, man. Drive.
And we're here, and we're always here when you decide you want to get a little bit more advanced driver skills. Like, you decide you want to start pulling a few more advanced skills. Hey, then maybe you hire us. But for the most part, this is how someone like Josh transitioned from a customer into actually a certified person, because they realized like, hey, we can take ownership over our own business, and they still pay us on the side for additional services, because there's times when things are above their learning level. And so it didn't actually make us obsolete. It actually strengthened our relationship, and we get a higher lifetime value for our customer, because now they're more of our friend, our partners, and we love seeing their success. And that's amazing. So this is essentially kind of wrapped up our whole process. We would love at any time if, like I know Paulson likes to put things in the chat. So if people would like us to expand at some point on this into a bigger teaching, we'd be more than happy to, to do that. And I thank everybody for tuning in for us.
Yeah, so we talked about tactical versus technical. Three things was, really the scope of work and the documentation around it. The second thing was building out the assembly line that matches the operations of the business, or just really matching orange for an orange and apple for an apple. Then the third thing was, helping them see the deployment and the fulfillment of what that should look like, and setting the expectations. I know this didn't get all built out overnight. This is a lot of pain and tears and smiles and laughter and lost business and gained business and canceled clients and pissed off people. Like, help us understand, like, what are some tough lessons you've learned over the years when it comes to getting to this point as we kind of close out the lunch and learn?
Wow, that's what a loaded question.
I have
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a very specific example for me that really led me to realize why I needed to take a page out of the E-Myth Revisited myself and develop systems, because I didn't even start seeing myself as how I started becoming the technician in other people's businesses. I think the hardest lesson for me was, because I didn't take my customers through this process and help them understand the separation between me working in their business and then, or me working on their business, I would get absorbed into these small businesses as such an integral part, as like almost a tech person that, again, I think you might even mention this at
Fractional, whatever provider,
you know, they
fractional
didn't
CTO,
separate
something.
me from being a business provider versus being an IT person. I was getting calls for all types of things. And I know you made mention of this at the SaaSpreneur event, and I just looked at Mike. I laughed because I'm like, this was us. So the big lesson for me was putting these systems in place to very clearly communicate the role of what I am playing in someone's business versus what part they're playing, and having an empowerment model, because technology is just moving too quickly for me to be everybody's main asset. So I needed the system to do the leveraging, not me. And so when we started pivoting our business model to give more control to our business owners, to really feel like they could be in control of their tech, one of our tagline for our SaaS software is command your business, because it's really about us letting them command their business, not us commanding it for them. And so that was a huge lesson. I would say a big takeaway for me was, you as a service provider also need systems to help keep you on track and know what role are you playing. Am I playing business coach right now? Am I playing manager and operations, or am I playing technician? And what does that mean to the business owner? So I make sure that there's clear, clear boundaries.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It's well said. And I think for me, when we, dealing, like you said, there's tears of joy, tears of despair, and there's laughing, there's sadness. Those are emotions, right? So you, during this process, really what's happening is you're building yourself and you're building your own emotional intelligence. You have to be calm, relaxed, and confident in what you're doing. And you only get that with time on the water, reps in the gym, right? And be understanding that, when people call you, sometimes, oftentimes, 9 times out of 10 in my personal experience, people are calling me because their hair's on fire, things are broken, Mike, this isn't working, but it's like almost like a 911 emergency response, and you have to be chill, relax. Okay, let me see what's going on. Let me take, because your job is to de-escalate their crazy scenario, whatever they're dealing with. That's your job, and aside from the technical aspect, you develop a seriously high emotional intelligence, because these people that are dealing with a lot of things in life, and oftentimes you get the brunt force of it. Don't take it personal. It just happens. And oftentimes we ourselves are guilty of doing that too, so some poor soul that we, divulge all of our problems on, right? So understand that it's going to be ebb and flows, up and down of an emotional roller coaster. Take time, take deep breaths, relax, think things through logically, so that way you can make proper judgment calls and tactical decisions versus making off of emotions.
And your
Yeah.
greatest liability is going to be the customer's mental liability. It goes a long way in saving you headaches down the road, because it probably isn't what you're building them. It probably isn't the process or the price or anything. It's the ability for your customer to mentally understand and grasp what they're buying and what they're doing. So we always tell everybody, like, the greatest thing that I have to handle every time a new customer comes in is the mental liability of, is my customer going to understand the process so I can take them through? Using a system like this helps make sure that you are indeed keeping them along the track with you. And so it's a huge piece in growing your services.
Absolutely.
I love that. I mean, even as we've launched this whole SaaSpreneur movement across the board, I'm a true, and we talk about how unattractive an agency model is often, because we all want the subscription recurring revenue model. Quite often we know it's more stable, it's less churn, yeah, yada yada yada. But I truly believe that building an agency is the ultimate personal development course anybody can go through. I
No
mean, it
question.
is. I'm a true believer of it, and I, don't regret building two agencies, and you both are doing essentially the same thing, and you have a SaaS safety net in a way. Like, you have an insurance play there that's going to build in and create long-term revenue. So I'm excited for it. As you're watching this, this is the Lunch and Learn. We talked about the tactical versus technical. Replays will be provided across all of our YouTube channels and social channels. I think nine or 10 different social channels will be live here. So you'll be able to get the presentations, any kind of collaterals and assets or snapshots or whatever Michael or Jasmine may provide. Will make that available to you again in the description. there is a 30-day trial that's available to you. Feel free to jump in. We appreciate serving a lot of you that are part of the High Level family. But either way, Michael, Jasmine, thanks for saying yes to us and recording a lunch and learn session. We're excited for the crowd to take some of the things that you've taught and implemented and hear back from a lot of them.
Our
Awesome.
pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
All right, bye for now.